you'll be doing at the workshop is your psychological illusion model. So I just wondered if you could say a little bit, give us a taster of what that is and why it's useful to use.
Yeah. Well, you know, most people, when people contact me and ask me for, you know, hints, people are very often very interested in techniques, you know, techniques and formats. And the more I've done this work, the more I've come to realize that it's not so much the techniques, it's more the underlying frameworks that you work through that is of importance. And I have found, you know, the whole mental illness frame very limiting and very incompatible with, you know, helping people really create changes. I mean, you can. A lot of people talk about treatment and therapy and stuff like that, but I think it's a bit like shooting oneself in the foot. And what I have discovered over time is that, at least for me, the most consistently useful frame that I have for helping a client is to view what they call their issues as a psychological illusion. And of course, a psychological illusion kind of meaning that when you first experience something, it appears in a certain way. But if you know how to take a look, like if you know how to focus in and really look at your own experience, you very often have the opportunity to see that what you thought was there isn't quite there. And that's bound to change your experience. So I'll give a quick example. If I had two threads, you know, one red thread and one white thread, and I intertwined them really tightly from a distance, and you looked at it, it might very easily look like one big pink thread. You know, it would look that way. It would seem that way. It would be your reality, so to speak. But if you were to stop and really look at it and come closer and start to play with it, it's not so much that pink would disappear. It's more that you would realize that pink was actually never there. And if pink is never actually there, that means that anytime you look, you have an opportunity to make that discovery. So, for example, in the case of anxiety, you know, when people experience what we call anxiety, there's some perception of danger in their experience, meaning that they're interpreting what they're experiencing as somehow being threatening. So the question is, if what they are experiencing is in fact threatening, if there is an actual threat there, we should be able to find it. Now, there are ways of, you know, I do thought experiments with clients, you know, hypnotic phenomena, games, you know, paradoxes, all sorts of stuff. There are, so if the danger is actually there, we should be able to find it if we look for it. And there are very systematic ways of helping people discover, you know, not just intellectually, but in an embodied way, that the threat they thought was there in their experience isn't actually there. And as soon as someone, you know, really sees that or discovers that, it's bound to change their experience. I'll give you another example of this. You know, trauma. When people are traumatized, there's very often the perception of inescapability. I'm stuck in this experience. You know, I'm overwhelmed. I'm stuck. There's no way out. And one big factor at play here is a misunderstanding of how memory works. And I've found that by having people look for the inescapability, they have the opportunity to discover that it's not really there in their actual experience. So I'll give you one more example too. You know, I use this model with allergies, for example, which you can frame as a phobia of the immune system, where once again, to the mind-body system, it looks like there's pink, you know, going on. But you can do some experiments to help people discover that the pink isn't actually there when you have a look. Same goes with what we call addictions, you know. If I have a client who says that they have an urge to smoke or a compulsion to smoke, once again, if there really is such a thing there, we should be able to find it. And when people stop and they really look for the compulsion or they really look for the urge, they, not always, but they very often discover that what they thought was a compulsion to smoke isn't really a compulsion to smoke. And it's bound to, in some way, change their experience.